Hi, I'm Mary B. Safrit, and welcome to the Unsuitable podcast. On today's episode, you're going to hear from Giselle Perry. She's an architect. She is hilarious and has lived a life, and I can't wait for y'all to hear her stories. So let's get to it. Hi, Giselle. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
Thanks for trekking all the way over to the Upper East Side on this terrible, rainy, gross day.
Sad, depressing, dark, cold, rainy day.
It was so depressing. It rained all day. It finally stopped, though.
It did stop, and I feel so much better. No, it's still left over. The sadness is still in the air.
It's a lingering despair.
A lingering darkness and sadness, and I'm totally happy. It's a good day. It's still a good day.
That's good. Well, I'm glad to hear it. Also, a little tidbit for those of y'all listening. Somebody has decided to have a rager somewhere in my building, and there's just like a bass line that has been going for the past 45 minutes. So if you hear it throughout this, just think of it as like nice, soothing background music.
Ambiance.
To go along with the dulcet tones of Giselle and Mary B.
GiselleandMaryB.com.
Why I made that sound so sultry and weird.
Call 555.
Oh, man. Well, that feels like a great start to the episode.
Oh, yeah. Everyone knows what they're getting now.
Could you just dive right in and tell me about a time you felt unsuitable?
Oh, man. Okay, so we're breaking it down. A time that I felt unsuitable in my life, I think it was kind of 2 times. And they're times that I look back on now and kind of see differently, so thankfully. But when I was starting college, so freshman year, I was coming in and I did this program, and it had a bunch of people, and they were all really cool, and it was volunteer work, and I ended up making all these friends. A lot of them were guy friends, so that was cool. I was like, cool girl with all the guy friends, and, felt very nice about that. I don't know. I think this is something I've talked to you about, of like being the cool girl with the guy friend, but really like secretly wanting to date them at the end of the day.
Right.
Like, that's
having
what all
that,
cool girls
like,
are doing.
Low key ulterior motive.
Exactly.
But then you're just like actually just friend zoned.
Yeah, you're totally friend zoned, and you're like hanging out in their room, and you're like giving them advice, and you like really believe that there's like something about to happen at every turn.
Like a special emotional connection that they're gonna just wake up to.
And it never happens.
No, it doesn't.
No. I feel like I'm misleading you on this story now, but I'll keep it going. But
it's not the key part of
that is not the crux of the tale. But there's a guy in the friend group. So there was about 3 guys. We're going to give him a name, but not his actual name. We're going to call him Tom. We're going to call him Tom.
Tom. I like it.
Tommy, Thomas. No, just Tom.
Like Tom Haverford, because we were talking about Parks and Rec before we started recording.
Don't get me started. I'm going to keep going for
No.
I'm
Focus.
Tom Haverford.
Focus on Tom.
Okay, I'm sorry. Tom. So Tom was like this guy, obviously, and we were pretty close. He was like one of my closest friends at the early parts of school, and we spent so much time together in this friend group, and we would party together and do all of those things. And then I realized not too long into the friendship that he had a crush on me, and I didn't actually reciprocate those feelings, but I still still spent a lot of time with him, and he kind of became more and more territorial about me. And we would go out and he would tell people like, why don't you just tell them I'm your boyfriend? And like someone like gave me their number, like physically wrote it on a piece of paper and handed it to me, and he took it and like threw it to the other side of the room, and he was like, guys are just trash, I hate them, so it was this weird thing, and whatever. So that happened all the time, and basically then there was this lull. So he had gone to one of the other guys in the friend group and called his ex-girlfriend at the time and told her that the guy had moved on. And it was one of those things that was more of a betrayal because he was much closer to the guy than he was to the girl. And the guy actually hadn't moved on. Like, he was expecting to get back with the girlfriend. And it ended up being this whole rift in our friendship. But we thought that it was like a temporary rift, but it ended up being kind of the last time that I really talked to him at all. So I was having these misgivings about talking to him again, and all of my female friends, I did have female friends, you know.
Yeah.
I will just say that too. They were also in this friend group, but they were, you know, on the periphery. And they kind of told me, you know, you really shouldn't reconcile with this guy. And I was like, what kind of friends are you? Like, telling me not to reconcile friendships? Like, aren't we supposed to be good and like get over things and like love each other, whatever? But they were like, he's really not worth your time, Giselle. And I remember being like, you guys there's a little more to this than what you're telling me. And I kind of beat it out of them. And they told me, you know, so basically the guys kind of confronted him and they said, hey, why haven't you asked Giselle out yet? And kind of cornered him. And he was like, you know, I love Giselle. Giselle's great. Giselle's amazing. But I just can't wrap my mind around dating a black girl. I could just never see myself with a black girl. And Giselle's not even really black. I know that, but I just can't see myself with a black girl. Like, she's probably like the least black person, but it's just like, I don't know. I just could never see myself with a black girl. And I just can't do it. It's too hard. I don't know. And obviously the guy friends told my girlfriends and they told it to me. And I just was shocked and decided I was never going to contact him again.
Yeah.
And this was my closest friend at the time, so I expected that he would at least, you know, reach out begging for something. I don't know. But he never did. And months later, it was my birthday, so not many months, but a few months later, and he kind of texted me happy birthday or something like that, and I was like, yeah, you know, you never call anymore. And he was like, yeah, but it was always you who called. You know, you were always the one that texted first. You were always the one that made the plans. You were always the one that called. So what was I like? What would I look like if I called you? And the sad part is, like, even though all of this like trashiness had happened, there was still like a small part of me that felt unsuitable and felt that there was something kind of not wrong with me, but like something off. And at least that's how he was making me to feel. And that was a very low point in college. So those were like the first days of college, maybe the first 3 weeks of college. So I always tell people
it started with a bang.
It started with a bang bang, and I always tell people I had like a very interesting experience at school, kind of bookended by these two things. So the second thing that happened, so in school, and this is kind of the one thing I feel like if I could have done it again, I would have done differently, and I don't like to live in regret or think about regret very often, but I think about how I didn't make any black friends when I was in school. And a lot of me says that there were no black people at school, and that's how come I didn't meet them, and this is the truth in all of this. But the truth was that there were steps that I could have taken to actually meet black people, but I wasn't taking them because I believed that we were in this like post-racial something, and that I didn't need to be singling myself out as a black person. But I found that people were doing that for me. You know, it wasn't like I didn't have to do it myself. Someone else was going to always do it for me. And college was kind of this awakening to my race and the importance of it. So I had all of these white friends, and I read this book, Americana, and the main character in the book writes this blog about a boyfriend she had, and she like refers to him as like the white boyfriend. And I thought how messed up is it to like reduce someone to that? Like, this was someone that you actually dated and like you had a relationship with and you clearly loved, but you're going to just reduce him to white boyfriend. So I'm not reducing these friendships to white friends. Like, I had real meaningful friendships with these people, and I still, you know, talked to some of them, and they were good to me at the time for what I needed, and they're still good people. But I had a lot of white friends in school, only white friends. And we were going to parties, and they were like, Giselle, they had all started dating, and they were like, Giselle, we really want you to meet a guy. Like, we want you to be happy, because I couldn't possibly be happy single. You know? Especially in college, I must have been like such a basket case, you know. So they all encouraged me to go out to this party. We all get dressed up, and it's me and 3 other girls, or maybe 4. And we go to this fraternity. I went to kind of a party school, so they were kind of it was a party school. I can't even reduce it. I can't even lie. That, It was definitely a party school. I got an education as well.
Right.
You know,
You're also a successful human, so you know.
What is success? But I went to this school, and there was a fraternity, many fraternities, but we went to one in particular. And we get there, and my friends got really excited because there were black guys at this party, and that was like such a rarity. There's always, I'd say, like a token black person in a fraternity. There was always kind of like a quota that needed to be made. So you're always going to find like 1 or 2 black guys in every frat or something like that. But these guys were like clearly not a part of the frat. Yeah. And they were standing off to the side, and my one friend was like really eagerly trying to get me to dance with one of the guys. And she's like, they're all looking at you. Like, they're all looking at you. This is insane. And they were. So I was like, okay, you know, kind of feeling myself. I really wasn't even like dressed that well. Like, I was I was like dressed like pretty regular, but I was still feeling myself. Like, I feel like that confidence, like people can see that on you. Yeah. And, you know, and there was also this thing of like, you're black and I'm black, so we're for each other, you know, which is, no, that doesn't work. But that was like, these were like the only black people I was seeing in my life. So I was really excited to be seeing them. So, so we get to the party. They tell me the guys are looking at me. And then all of a sudden, the guys start coming over. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, this is about to be like a nice night, whatever. So I said that there were 4 other girls and me. So there were maybe 5 of us standing in a circle. And there were 5 guys. Yeah. So they're all like approaching us. And one pulls my one friend. The next pulls my other friend. The next pulls my other friend. The next pulls my other friend. And the last one just pulls back. Oh my gosh. And I'm literally left standing alone in the middle of a dance floor. Literally alone. Like, I don't know where everyone went. It was like that moment in a movie where like all the flashing lights are happening and the girl's like, I'm just dancing on my own. Like, you're by yourself. And all of my friends were dancing with guys, and I was just like left by myself. And I was just like, wow. So I had this initial experience of, you know, white people didn't want me, white guys didn't want me. And then I had this later experience kind of at the end of my college career, or close to it. And it was like, black people don't want you either. Black guys don't want you either. And that was like, whoa, like, I'm just not going to date anymore. Like, school is the number one. And I get so much from people who say to me, oh, Giselle, I just don't see how you're single. Like, I don't get it. Like, have they not met you? Like, saying things like that. And also, I don't get how you didn't date in college and all of this and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, well, it was slim pickings. And also, I was kind of traumatized by both of those experiences. Yeah. And I was definitely made to feel that I was less than, and I definitely, in that time, had started to believe it, which was lowpoint.com. Yeah. But it's the past. Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad to say that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that that's like, so we did a dry run of this for everyone listening, and I've already heard these stories, but even it's like hearing them the second time, I'm still like, so just feeling all of the things.
All of the feels.
Like so mad and like upset and just like, yeah.
It's like, what an introduction to the world, kind of.
It's like, and now go out into the world and be successful when we have told you that, like, you're not worth anyone's time, right? Like, that's something that you've had to work through and something that you've had to overcome.
Exactly.
Which is, I think, is a really hard path to walk when, right, you have to believe in your worth for yourself, not because of what anyone else is telling you, but because you just are worthy of love, right? Yeah. Man, that's such a hard thing to have to do.
I think that what I will say about them is that even though they happened and they were like terrible experiences, and I'm not like trying to make it sound like somebody came and robbed my whole apartment or anything like that, but at the same time, these were like formative experiences, and I feel like I've been forged in fire, like these things have contributed to who I am today and have therefore contributed to a more confident person and like a more like a stronger person that I don't think I could have been without feeling those sorts of rejection. And I went to school every day and got rejected in a totally different kind of way. And I just was forced to deal with a lot of rejection and a lot of people telling me you're not worth, and that kind of stepping away from that, I was like, God was saying something, you know, like there's something here. Like I do have value, and these people, these people were wrong, yes, but I was wrong too. Like I believed them, and I shouldn't have. And like now I can minister to someone else, and I can't stand next to that girl who's alone at the party. I'm not gonna be with every girl who gets rejected by some guy and they make it about their race. I can't be there for those people, but I can at least say my story and maybe have community with someone who's been through it, and maybe encourage someone who thinks that they're the only one who's ever felt something like that.
Yeah, and also shine a light on, I don't know, anyone, right, who has made any sort of comment like that and just didn't think through what they were saying. So much in my past of how I've had to walk through what the implications and the privilege that come along with being white. It's been a lot of moments like that where I'm like, oh, wait, no, I need to really think about what I am saying and what is in between and behind not just my words, but my actions. Yeah.
I'm nodding my head. No one can see, but I'm nodding my head right now.
Right. And it's, so I'm really grateful that you shared that.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad to share it. And the last thing I'll say about it is that me coming up in the way that I did led me to believe that I kind of grew up kind of romantically. I grew up in a very diverse place. And my first experience with race was in college. And I think that is a privilege to have never experienced someone telling me I was Black until I was 19, 18 years old, and that is a privilege I recognize. I think I think everyone has to be honest about the privilege that they have. Yeah. And I think everyone has some sort of privilege when you pull the lens out, when you zoom out, you're still doing better than someone else. Yeah. Always.
Yeah.
you still have some privilege that you subscribe to.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned growing up in a diverse era. You grew up in New Jersey. Yes.
Jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm cheering like I have any connection or sentimentality towards New Jersey.
Because nobody does. It's so crazy. I'm just like so excited for you to be saying it. I was like, man, most people like they bash it. Like, wow, I'm so proud.
I have a lot of friends from New Jersey.
Oh,
a lot is
New
a
York.
strong word, but no, even in college, there were a lot of people from this general vicinity that went to my school.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
So anyways, so you grew up in New Jersey, a pretty diverse area. You also grew up as a pastor's kid, which was its own type of experience.
Plot twist. Oh, yeah.
What? So I didn't plan it that you would be right after the last person I interviewed. Pablo is also a PK.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I didn't plan it like that, but it's like a fun thing
It is a
that
fun
we're doing
thing.
now. PK themed couple of episodes.
Exactly.
No. So
I only want the PK experience. Okay.
exactly, right. Everything is going to be focused on that from now on. Now, would you, though, temporarily talk about some of how that's informed your faith and how it's been maybe a little bit challenging?
Yeah. I've definitely have been challenged. I think I've heard a lot of sermons about the call to ministry and the call to be a pastor, and they talk about the call to be married to a pastor, right? Mm-hmm. And I also think there's like a call to be a child of a pastor. Mm-hmm. Like there's something about that. It is not easy. It is not like a thing to kind of take lightly. I don't know. Growing up, it was kind of clear. I have to choose my words because I love my dad. I'm going to say this first. I love my dad so much. He's amazing. And
yeah.
I've had a really great family experience. But it was very clear to us that it went the church, my mom, and then us in the hierarchy of importance to my father. And it never felt bad, though. Like, I never was angry about that. I just understood that that's how things went. Mm. And I think it's very important in a marriage that the marriage comes before the kids in a lot of ways, because that's kind of how you can, like, start rifts and break things up.
Yeah.
But when there are two things above the kids, that's, like, a harder thing to reconcile. And it became a challenge in my faith because I thought that meant that I had a stronger faith because my dad was a pastor. I thought that it was an answer. And I definitely told you about how when I was in school, this woman asked me, "Are you a believer?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm a believer. Yeah, my dad's a pastor." And I thought that would add 10 points, add 20 points.
Yeah,
like, this
right.
girl, she's serious. She's legit.
She's like next level holy.
Yeah, like she's the holy of holy.
Yeah, right.
But
that's Jesus.
I believed that correct.
Just to clarify.
Yes.
Yeah.
For anybody who doesn't know, that was not me. I am not that. Yes. Okay. So that was the thing, and I thought that was like a guaranteed salvation, that it meant that I had this deeper understanding of Christianity, of faith, and because I had this kind of direct line to God, I could just like tap my dad's shoulder and be like, "Hey, let me know." And it's also it became more difficult as I got older and had to answer for myself, and I had a lot more people asking me about my faith than I ever had, because I grew up in a church where my dad was the pastor of it. So even in new members class, like, nobody would ever talk to me about things. Like, it was just understood that I just knew everything. And I found out I didn't know a lot. I still don't know a lot.
Yeah.
And there are times when, like, people still to this day will say things to me, and I'll be like, yeah, I knew that, and I gotta look it up when I get home or something like that. And I'm no better. I'm better because I have more people praying for me, maybe. And I can say that. But I'm not better than anybody else. Than anybody else's faith, because my dad is a pastor. And I had to understand that. And it became a more difficult thing when I had to leave my dad's church, which I have been going to since I was like born, and I went to up until recently, up until about 3 or 4 months ago. And that was a very difficult transition, and I kept comparing everyone to my father, and I kept thinking to myself, this guy's never going to be as good as my dad's preaching. Like, my dad's amazing. Like, this guy is just he's just standing there. Also, he's not mentioning me in the sermon. This can't be good. Like, this is false doctrine.
Rude. None of the anecdotes are about me.
I haven't been called on once, not even twice. Like, I was so upset. I was just like, I can't believe it. And all through college, that was my frame of mind. And so I basically stopped going to church in school because I just felt like all of the preaching I was hearing was subpar, was not speaking to me, was not filling me, was not doing anything. And it was just like hitting me like I was a wall. And I had to take a moment and look back, and looking back on it years later, I recognized that it was all my fault that I wasn't hearing anything. Like, I couldn't blame that church for not affecting me. I can blame myself for not being open to being affected at all, because I wasn't. I was not willing to hear anything from those people. They were really nice, but I just didn't feel heard. I didn't feel... It was a white church, and I'd also never gone to a white church as well. So I just kept thinking, like, they're not for me. This is just not for me. I can't hear any of this. This is whatever. And now I have just found a church, and
that's new.
It's new
since the dry run.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh,
totally
that's
new.
so exciting.
I walked into this church, and so it was up between two churches. They were neck and neck, bottom of the ninth. And one church, my dad had known the guy, and my dad grew up with the guy, and he had recommended me to him, and I walked in, and it was as if like. The guy actually knew me. Like, I never met him. He takes one look at me, and he's like, "Oh, you're Perry's daughter," you know. And I was just like, "Whoa, this guy's like my dad!" And I was so excited to have this like similar experience to my home church experience. But I kind of had to see that like that's not a normal experience to be having at church,
right? And
it's not necessarily the healthiest experience to have at church either, when people don't know you for yourself, but they know you for this persona. They know you for, you're the pastor's daughter, you're this, you're that. And there was all this like future that I could see at that church, because he was like, I have a son. And I was like, ooh, like, what is this? This is weird.
And also, all of a sudden your entire life is planned out for you.
Exactly. And that was weird, because even my dad and my mom said, and he has a son. And I was like, what is this supposed to mean? Like, that doesn't mean anything to me. I've never seen this guy. I don't know how old he is. I don't know his credentials. Like, it felt
other than being a pastor's kid, which you have said is not a guarantee.
It's not a guarantee, because who knows how I was acting in school. But yeah, so everybody's pushing me to, go to this church and meet this guy. And I never met the guy. I still have not met him. Maybe I'll meet him one day. Maybe, but I just had this moment, and I said, I don't need to be a pastor's kid everywhere I go.
Yeah.
Like, I need to have a church experience for myself. And I need to be looking at somebody who isn't my dad or my father-in-law or, something like that.
Yeah.
So there was literally a church, and I feel like I've really betrayed this church in going to this other church, because the other church is across the street. So I feel like people can see me, like they know I've deserted.
Yeah, it's like a walk of shame.
Yeah, and it's obviously like a bigger church, like more young people go to it. That was another issue. There weren't a lot of young people. But I feel like I walked into this church, I heard the sermon, and I was like, yep, that's it. And the guy was like, anybody wants to join the church, you can come up and all this stuff. And I just sat in my seat and I just, okay, I'm going to sit. And he's like, hey, we're waiting for you. And I was like, what? And I know that's like a line. Not really, but it's not a line. I don't want to like cheapen that.
You don't want to discredit the Holy Spirit.
I don't want to discredit the Holy Spirit because my dad has said that many times, and he's waited and people haven't come. And I know that he really was waiting for someone. And, he felt that there was somebody to wait for. So I got up and I ran down and I joined on the first day that I went. And then I went back and it was extra good. And I'm really happy. I'm really happy to go to that church. So I have found a church. Problem not solved, but problem changed.
Yeah.
We got a new problem now. Something else.
Something else.
Something else.
There, if not now, there will be one imminently.
Imminently.
It's just how my anxiety works.
Life is good. Everything's good. Forget what we're saying.
It's that's in Daring Greatly, Brene Brown talks about that feeling of foreboding joy is what she calls it, where it's like things are good, but you don't really trust that they're good. It's like a vulnerable thing to be happy in a moment and trust that it's good, and because you're like something bad is around the corner.
Why are we so cynical? Why do we feel like this? I fully feel like this. I kept saying to my sister, I was like, I joined this church, but we'll see. It's a really great church. I really like it a lot.
There's also, it's still new for you, so I think there's that healthy sense of discernment, we'll call it, that like little separation that lets you not be so like swept up in the emotion of the church or whatever. Yeah, that's a real thing.
Mm-hmm. Or the son of the pastor, This pastor also has a son, but...
Oh my gosh.
No go. It's a no-go. I think he's already married.
Okay. So speaking of foreboding joy, let's go back to that. Why don't you tell me one thing that's hard right now and one thing that's great?
Okay. Can I flip the order? No, I'm kidding.
No, we want to end on a high note.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Okay. So
you're not the first person to ask that, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I feel like
can I say the good one first? I'm like, nope.
It's like,
sure can't.
It's like the whole good news or bad news thing. Like, I want the good news first. And it's like, the good news is there's only bad news.
That's not good news.
That's what you get for getting it first.
That whoever told you that doesn't understand how that game works.
Okay. One thing that's hard, and this is something that has always been hard for me, and I think other people think this is hard too, and that's change. Mm-hmm. And I'm in a point in my life where a lot of things have to change, a lot of things have changed, and I'm struggling with letting them. And I recognize that they need to. Like, a lot of situations I'm in, I'm not like doing the best that I could do in those situations, and I won't go deeper into them than that. But some other things that have changed, like me changing churches, and that ended up being a really great experience. And I ended up having like really honest conversations with my family about the things that I needed and things like that, and other changes that me moving and all of those things, like, they feel hard at first, and change is never something that is initially exciting, but change is so important and like so necessary to grow. And I'm finding that the more I repel change, like the more stagnant I am and the more trapped I am in this moment, in this time.
Yeah.
And I heard this quote, and it has been freaking me out steadily, but also not enough to actually do anything. But it basically says the longer you take to act, the shorter your future will be. And it's just like, really hit me in this way of, you gotta actually live. Like, you gotta actually do things in your life. And you may experience this joy and this awesome thing, but wouldn't you be so much happier having that longer, having that as long as you could, as opposed to just like delaying it? And in my life, all I do is delay. I just delay it, and I prayed about it, and oh God, just help motivate me, And I just delay and delay. So that's been something hard, and that's something I've been praying through, and God is trying to help me through that. And he knows that I struggle with change.
Yeah.
If I had my way, none of my family would have moved out of my parents' house. Like, nobody. Like, we would all still be there, still hanging out every day. It would be awesome. Like, that's like my one ridiculous dream that I fully believe will happen, and will never ever happen. Like, babies are in the mix now. It won't happen.
Yeah.
And one thing that is good is my family. And there's something that has always been there for me, but also that I took for granted for a while and just like expected to have. Like, my family's just always going to be, they'll just support me, I guess. But I didn't realize what, like I said before, like a privilege it is to have people that support you, and that people that let you fail, and people that are okay with your failure, and people who don't discourage you taking a chance. And I remember when I was younger, I got like a bad grade, and I beat myself up about it so badly, and I felt like I felt so terrible. And my mom was like, "Hun, like, you can fail, you can do whatever. We're still gonna love you. Like, don't you know that?" And I was just like, whoa, that was all that I needed. And I didn't recognize at the time, like, how great that was. And so I'm really thankful for the family that I do have, and the family that's growing. Like, my brother got married like 2 years ago, and his wife is awesome. I love her. And she's just this really cool person who has given me a new insight on life. And, that thing that a family is never the same 10 years ago, 15, 20. Like, if you look back at my family, like, we've always been changing, and I love that. So they change. Why can't I change? I gotta change. So that's one thing that's hard, and one thing that's great. Oh, man, I said it was good. It's great.
Great. Well, Giselle, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Being so honest. Thanks for listening. Thanks again to Giselle. Shout out per usual to Chad Rollinson for sound and theme music. If you're enjoying these episodes, head over to Apple Podcasts and rate and review. If you're interested in being interviewed or know someone who should definitely be on the show, check out my website, marybsafrit.com, and click on the Contact Me page. While you're there, feel free to snoop around. I have a blog where I post weekly and all sorts of fun tidbits. If you want to follow me on social media, Instagram is best right now. My handle is maryb.safrit. It's maryb.safrit, Safrit. That's all for now.